Well, welcome to the fourth part. We're now speaking about ethics by design and digital future. We have distinguished speakers. My colleague, attorney Dr. Özparlak and Dr. Cansu Canca will be taking the floor first. They will be speaking about themselves first. Başak, can you please introduce yourself? What have you been doing on artificial intelligence? And what brought you to AI when you were an attorney? If you like, we can start with that. Thank you, Altuğ, and would like to express my appreciation to TEID for organizing the summit. On one side, I am an attorney, but in Ozan University, I am also delivering lectures and lessons on international law for artificial intelligence. And in the last 5 years, I've been writing various articles. And of course, I've started this with an interest. And if it were not for such an interest, we wouldn't have started all of my works there. Without losing time, Dr. Cansu, I'd like to turn to you as well. Cansu, previously we had very nice organizations organized with you. Cansu, if you like to introduce yourself, can you please also tell us a bit as to how you started working on ethics and artificial intelligence? Thank you, Altuğ, and thank you for the kind invitation. I'm a philosopher. I was educated on philosophy, and practical ethics is my field of application. Health policies, health technologies, and ethics have long been my topic. And this is how I've started working in AI. Bioethical questions I've started with, and digital technologies, and ethical questions, how they can be answered, now became my field of interest. And we're running some research work and providing advice to the people who are working in practice. Wonderful. Now, we know how philosophy really is important in ethics. And you have a philosophy background, and we understand it's quite important. But before getting there, in terms of artificial intelligence, ethical standards are really important to us. But law seems to follow a bit from behind. Once a scandal takes place or a major digital ethical problem takes place, we also need to have some regulations. Can you give us the general framework about the ethics and artificial intelligence? How does Turkey do and EU? Now, law has always been considered as a field to limit technology. Now, things are starting to change a bit because encouraging innovation and making sure for the technical aspect to work better, we need a legal background and a framework as to how people will be in charge of what and when. And now we understand that the European Union has a responsibility there. Particularly this year, legal activation will be started, as we'll say, because the European Commission published a white paper through the end of 2020. Later on, one ethics and intellectual property rights were also the themes discussed. And in 2021, the white paper is to be reviewed and also updated, but the European Parliament will also be starting a procedural start. But of course, about this confidentiality and privacy of data, we expect digital services and marketplaces laws to be introduced in the European Union. These are extremely important, including certification as well. These are all about the legal framework of artificial intelligence. Another thing is we are, as you know, a candidate country to the European Union, and at the same time, the companies who are active in Turkey will need to be in the position of enforcing such legal arrangements to be also competitive in the international domain. And also Turkey is a member to the Council of Europe. Therefore, Turkey has a word in also updating the conventions of the Council. So there is the new committee within the Council of Europe. And there are two important studies they published. One is the AI systems towards regulation, and the other one is the feasibility report. And the latter is applicable not only to governments, but all the companies around the globe. Two sentences maybe, of course, for a summary of this huge report. Number one is member states, by the way, Turkey is a member to the Council. Member states will be also forced to consider the artificial intelligence evaluation as an impact for human rights, and will be obliged to make some legal regulations in this respect. And the second one is, it's not only the parties of the convention, but also the companies that will be in charge of providing a delicate liability for the companies as well. Therefore, law is starting to move into this direction. In other words, we shouldn't consider law as a restraint, but rather as a cooperative or a two-way interaction with technology. And for the new actors and startups to be entering this sector, we need this as well. Artificial intelligence, if it's to bring us one humanitarian thing, that one thing will be rewriting the working discipline. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving us very good messages. Global actors you're referring to, but the World Economic Forum in its latest report refers to cybersecurity as one of the most important safety and security concerns. Also, there are issues about security of children, and the people who are using the artificial intelligence is using the systems without being duly properly informed, and there are some criticism raised for this within the scope of the legal liability, not only in Turkey but in other countries as well. Where do ethical principles stand? Do you think they're really relevant? Of course, I'm not an expert of ethics and will be getting connected to Cansu, but ethical values, particularly those who are generally accepted, should be the basis of all systems. Otherwise, we can be speaking about any justice brought to the system. And in the technical domain, social law, I think all disciplines should be working together, particularly in terms of accountability, transparency, and the other principles referred to in the Council of Europe in its reports. And even the artificial intelligence may be a part of the reports as they've disclosed. In this respect, I think collaboration is essential because the societies who matter, who give priority to collaboration and cooperation will rise. And particularly it's important to overcome legal problems and to provide social benefit. You are quite right, because you're referring to a new way of human rights. Actually, within the Ethics and Reputation Society, we always consider business and human rights to raise awareness to these concepts. And also, human rights is really evolving. Neuro rights, for instance, emerged as a new right. And hopefully, in our next issue of the journal, will be referring to that. Cansu, I'm now turning to you. And first, as an ethics philosopher, how have you started showing interest in artificial intelligence, and now you're working in a high model and about puzzle solving? What is it about? What kind of advantages will it bring to the companies, and how can it possibly change our way of ethical thinking? Thank you for all the nice questions. Now, when we say ethics, as a discipline. It is the subdomain of philosophy. And in any instance, particularly the applied ethics also relates to finding the right option as to which one is the right. Therefore, the theories we're using and reaching a conclusion, all of the instruments or tools we're using aims at finding a solution to this question. But the difference is when we say ethics, the people in this sector think which rules are being applied, and it just seems to be as the softened version of law. There is a list of rules, and which ones can we avoid so as to be okay with law. It's rather to harness the users or the companies as it looks as a system. Now, the people who come from philosophy, Pi model, for instance, puzzle solving in ethics, aims at finding a solution to the problems. Now, we know what is right, and we are trying to find an answer which of the options is the right one. From the very beginning to the end of innovation, there are questions that pop up, and it's which kind of data are we going to collect, and how are we going to collect that particular data? How are we just arrange that piece of data so that the data set would be fair, so that it will be contributing to the non-ethical evolution of the innovation that you will later do? What is your purpose of making the innovation? Is that really the correct goal? And what will be the potential impacts on the society? Now, these are the questions that we don't know answers yet, and we're trying to find answers. And as for the companies, as rightfully you said, it should be rather about not expecting scandals. I mean, your name, individual name, or your company's name doesn't need to appear in the newspaper. There are things that you can do before that will just avoid some ethical risks, and it also will help you find ethical opportunities, because innovation should have a place in correcting ethical problems in the world, or in other words, in meeting the ethical needs of your consumers. In other words, it should help them find proper credits with better conditions and meet many of their needs. And duly and in time, we should be providing this as an advantage to the companies. And the thing that is advantageous in terms of a timely intervention is the right resources should be used in the proper place, so that you'll be contributing to not only the society but also the academia or the company that you're serving for. Great. I mean, the Ethics and Reputation Society defines ethics on the basis of philosophy, and all philosophers we're using and referring to. And there is really the right motto: integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is looking. I mean, it's really important as a perception, but what is doing the right thing? I mean, is it really merely about defining the principles, transparency, privacy, and expecting the employees to understand what they would possibly mean, or by making use of behavioral economy, and by also using some motivating aspects for employees? Do you think this can be internalized? What do you think about internalization of ethics? What should the institutions be doing? Now, this is one of the questions where you will find the answer inside. Now, the principles, ethical principles, just a little things I'd like to say. Dynamics of AI Principles is the name of the study we ran. In the last 5 years, everywhere in the world, more than 100 ethical principles were published. These are AI ethical principles. And about that, we made analysis of that. We've developed a new instrument. And by UNESCO, it's also got a very nice reference. And Stanford High also included in its analysis, so it's been quite useful. But the point is, the principles are important, but we need to appreciate what the principles are and how we would adopt them to our own practice. But it's not the end of the story. We appreciate the purpose of the principles, but shouldn't be expecting too much. For a company to identify the principles, maybe it is more than we think. It means we all consider principles as human rights, list. All these 30 items relevant to the human rights, we are aspiring for them. But the problem is, in complex issues, there are some conflict of principles. Now, as we are trying to protect privacy, you have to give up on the benefits, like an instrument you're trying to build, but you want to protect privacy and you cannot build that instrument at all. At the time of that conflict, your company chooses one principle to highlight or prioritize. When there is no single correct answer, what should be the priority of your company? Like, for instance, Apple shouts out the fact that they prioritize privacy. We don't know if that is exactly true, but at least this is what they are saying. So the principle should be showing what your priority is. And when you're using it, you can just go on with the continuum of it. By test cases, for instance, you need to just adjust how you will be making a decision, under which conditions, and you're conveying it as a message to the managers of the company, to the principal developers, and to the advisors for ethics. Gradually, with some practical cases from life, with the trainings, the ethical approach of the company and the institution is prepared. So we are just exercising ethical reflexes or muscles. Or to give an example, I don't know if you would agree with me, thinking about the ethics, it's like going to the gym every day. If you go to the gym every day, after a while you get in shape, you get fit, but it doesn't happen if you do it once a year, twice, 3 times a year. It happens only if you make it a regular act. Exactly. And one also additional remark, it's a very good analogy that you're making. Every day you go to fitness, but you will not be the Olympic athlete, right? So there will be some fitness, trainers who will guide you. So ethical experts should be paving the way for you for difficult questions, but easily, answerable questions will not be referred to the trainer at all times. By developing an exercise for the muscles, you will have the capacity, indeed, that will give you the chance of building your own answers. With the next question I'd like to move, which I think is an interesting one. Cansu, as I've watched you on TEDx, the major companies, and I don't want to put any company at stake or any accusation. Technology companies such as Google, Facebook, or Amazon are also interested in AI systems, but they're having some problems in ethical systems that they're using being questioned very much. IBM, for instance, lately had a prediction about the employees who possibly would be losing their jobs, and the algorithm is questioned very much, and you're frequently referring to it. And the company is quite big, they're quite valuable, they are already developed their ethical principles. Why do you think would the ethical accidents take place? The easy answer to that, if you ask me, is not caring. Not paying proper attention. Because, most of the mistakes or the, failures happen knowingly, by underestimating ethics, if I may, or by considering ethics as a way of making advertisement. We've published those principles, and it really looked nice on the window shop window. And what do you think? Ethics washing. Ethics washing is not the correct thing, but when you look from ethics washing, by always referring to ethics and keeping on talking on well-being, fairness, by using these words, we're just really using the nice words. by the ethics washing, I mean, we try to refer to some rules, but no designer likes it. I mean, there is someone who is looking over your shoulder and are you doing it right? Otherwise, I will be shaking my finger at you. And then what we do is the designers or the technology developers should be in the position of asking their questions comfortably. If I ask a question, I shouldn't be in the position of just making a conclusion out of it, because there is nothing to reach a conclusion, because by designs, we can make sure that the designs survive healthily. But the big companies even is not, I mean, anyway, able to include the ethical aspect within the innovation process. Maybe they take a look at it initially, maybe at the end, but the big mistakes may be overlooked in between. And it's not merely about doing the best prediction, as in the example of IBM, or it's not about making the best innovation or the instrument ever, because we also want to make human to make use of its potential. I mean, a child who has no access to cultural resources, I think, will not be very successful in the future. And it's not a miracle, me making that prediction. And we should be doing something, or we should be also doing innovations that we can go beyond this prediction. And if we are making that prediction, we should also work out as to how we can reach a conclusion. It shouldn't be about accepting them to school. Your problem is if it's something about someone who's not paying for the loans, you're just offering another loan. The person is already not able to pay the loan, and we're offering the extra loan, and we are exposed to artificial intelligence, all of us, without knowing about it. And in every sector that we are exposed to the analysis of the artificial intelligence, these systems being right is extremely important for us. And this is not a particular segment of the society I'm referring to. Now, from the classical perspective, the employee having some loyalty dead to the company is no longer of debate. Rather, we are speaking about the penetration of the artificial intelligence, and it's really important to think for the sake of the society. And as a trainer, I think the ethical experts should be guiding the individuals and should be in the position of respecting others. From maybe at the very beginning of design, ethics should be there. This is, I think, what I understand of your emphasis. Başak, turning to you. As a distinguished colleague of mine, I know that you have a very good interaction in business law. What do you think should be the impact on the businesses would be? This may be somehow like a popular culture question. Will the professions be lost in the path to AI? Or with AI being a part of the companies, what kind of ethical and legal problems are awaiting us in the companies? It's a very nice question. Let's take a look at what happens now before all the jobs disappear. There is something that has started disappearing. Automatization of management in the business place. I mean, it's rather the individuals losing their influence in making decisions, from how the people are submitting their resumes to how they are picked within this pool of resumes, how the promotions, salary decisions are made, and as a result of the algorithms, the decisions are made particularly for these employees. And starting with, of course, the announcements of vacancies reaching the individuals, it all starts. Therefore, in the United States, there was a case that ended with reconciliation, and the reasons for the discrimination against women was discussed. And starting there, Facebook said, I'm going to use a different platform and I will not be making a distribution of announcements. And now there is a regulation that is ahead in the horizon in the European Union. There are liabilities to be imposed on the companies. Which announcement are you showing whom? There will be some fines applicable. The fines, I think, have to be considered as a part of the GDPR because it considers liabilities considering the counts. Other than that, of course, what I need to say about jobs is, of course, some jobs will disappear. Some will transform into and some will evolve into new jobs. But there is no use being too optimistic or too pessimistic. Law and ethics should discuss how we can reach social interest, and it will be like daydreaming if we say that there will be no problem at all, because now we are facing the risk of not the AI but the economic balance, because maybe more than ever we are facing a gap of inequality. In COVID-19 pandemics, we've also seen this. Access to education is the mere example to that. And reaching a reasonable level of healthcare services will have an impact over the entire society. And once we appreciate it, we would have a better understanding of the AI, how it will be making the systems more available to the rest of the society. We are building this within this existing system, and I think this system should be used for the advantage of everyone in really important domains such as health, climate, digital agriculture. Artificial intelligence will really serve a lot for the interests of the society, and in particular for the use of it to the entire society. I think the companies will be enforced in a way for international competition, and especially the sustainability criteria of the United Nations can only be implemented within the framework of this understanding. Soon there will be some, for instance, human rights certificates, and these companies that are holding such certificates will be in a more advantageous position. But in the evolution of jobs, what we can do individually, probably we should be also, of course, depending on the available resources at hand, we should be self-training ourselves and at the same time pave the way for the consumers for mass consumption. But there is an imbalance there. If you overcome these imbalances, of course, it will be more advantages. And within this economic system, there are some, of course, problems in itself. Thank you. I wish we had more time to get into details of this, because I have thousands of questions that I want to ask you, like the biological and technological, supremacy, how this, group of people will have some superiority over the rest of the public. And it's really being discussed too much, particularly about organ transplantation. But I'm afraid we're reaching the end of the session, and we'll finish with Cansu, the last words. Now, as the Ethics and Reputation Society, we also work on ethical culture, ethical decision-making. These probably are the domains that we care about the most, and we are not interested in what the law or the regulation thinks or says. And the transformation will be about the companies, because they will be serving to the society. Einstein says ethical culture is the only way for salvage. Now, in this respect, anyone who's working in artificial intelligence ethics, maybe compliance managers or lawyers or the people who are interested simply about it, what would you advise them? And are there things that you would say, if I knew about it 5 years ago, I would have done better? Personal question. Hopefully it will work out right. What really matters here the most is When we say digital ethics or the AI ethics, it's merely the area that is being supported by many fields. But this was so for bioethics, and for bioethics to stand alone. The ethical aspect is done by us, the philosophers, but for applicability, we need a legal framework to be able to get data. We should be supplied with social data from sociology, and we need from the science or of medicine to be supplied with proper data so that we can make proper analysis. And organ transplantation, for instance, was my doctorate thesis, and of course you don't have the chance of sitting and writing the thesis from the table. And the same is true for AI, and we're speaking about a system with different contribution of different areas. Your field of expertise, a contribution to your field, like an economist, we have an incredible need for that, to analyze the existing impact and the future predicted impact of economy. Or if you're working in the field of sociology, the relationship of the society with innovation or AI, we need that piece of data. Rather than all of us trying to be philosophers, we should be supporting each other. But there are things that we're obliged. Although it's at minimum level, we all need some minimum basic knowledge of AI so that we can speak understanding about it. Like for genomics ethics, when you're doing it, you should be appreciating what it is so that you'll have correct predictions or assumptions. Similarly, AI systems should be appreciated well. When I first started with the artificial intelligence, this is what my professor said: you should have at least a communicable level of knowledge. And since we are speaking of ethics, basic understanding of ethics we should have so that we speak the same language. And after that, of course, for your particular specialization, if you're too sound, it's really something that you will put on the table. Your own field of expertise, I think, should be channeled to that. Thank you for the marvelous summary. Really speaking on the ethical field, we should know about the ethical notion. And about the universities and departments of engineering, now ethics has become a lecture. If you think the contrary, any person who is speaking on ethics should be knowledgeable about the relevant business model. Business schools are now teaching AI ethics, and in MIT, I'm delivering the only artificial intelligence seminar. And what we need to look at is, we shouldn't be following from behind. There are new departments on robotics and artificial intelligence, but whenever necessary, ethics should be added. But it shouldn't be added whenever necessary, and it should be added from the beginning. Not necessarily we should be following 5 years behind if you want to make a contribution to this field, of course. Absolutely. And ethics should not be, if it were there, it would have been better. Thank you very much for the nice conversation. I would like to thank both of you very much, Dr. Cansu and attorney Dr. Başak Ozan Özparlak. They both are experts in their field, and they appear in different events all the time. And about AI law and ethics, I'm sure that they've been delivering enormous services, and this is how I would have motivated the participants to listen to you. We would like to thank you very much as the Ethics and Reputation Society. There are a lot that remain undiscussed, but hopefully we've paved the way for a future debate. And take care until we see each other again. Thank you very much. Thank you as well.